to Technology and Arts Management, Theater 3135. This course is an online asynchronous exploration of technologies used to manage arts projects and support creative careers, where we're going to be looking at both the fundamentals of digital tools and the critical issues that shape how we use them. So you'll not only learn how to use the tools effectively, hopefully, but also to help you decide when and why it matters to use a variety of tools. By the end of the year, you're going to develop some skill, maybe not expertise, but some skill in web design, data management, graphic design, and presentation tools. You're going to learn how to establish a professional web presence, organize project information into databases, and design clear and effective documents, as well as presenting ideas with confidence to get your point across clearly for the types of projects that you're going to do. Generally, this falls into 4 different categories: web design, data management, graphic design, and visual communication, that's 1, and presentation tools. Each of these sections that we're going to be working for is divided up into a different number of modules. Sometimes these include short video lectures, readings, all of them have an assignment part of them. Each module gives you a chance to practice key concepts, and each section is going to conclude with a larger project that synthesizes this learning. Throughout the course, you're going to complete a website project that serves as the backbone of your work across both of the terms. You'll also do a database project to build and understand queries and relational data. You're going to create a show program, which you're going to design a multiple-page playbill program that you get at the theater. Also understanding the hierarchy of information and how to organize things for people to read marketing materials or other communications documents. And then you're going to have a presentation project where you're going to present a topic of your choosing in a 5-minute presentation, 10 slides, etc., using best practices that we will discuss in the course, and putting all these things together. Now, the website that you're going to create is going to be very important. In the fall, you're going to submit a beta version. This is going to be something that I'll grade and I'll give you feedback on, but because it is something that you are imagining how it's going to be used and you will have yet to actually use it, it's something that we're then going to utilize to store all of your other work and become a repository across the rest of the class. And then it's going to be reevaluated, if you'd like it to be, by the end of the winter term. One of the things then to keep in mind with the website is that whatever you create has to be live and online and accessible through the end of April, when the exam period ends and when final grades will be submitted. If you decide to use a paid platform or something premium that involves you paying money to get it up and online, please keep this in mind that you're going to have to keep it online, and we'll be using that to submit your work through April. So don't just use something because you think that's going to look good for turning in the initial assignment in November. Know that you have about 6 months that you're committed to keeping that live and active. Let's take a look ahead at the upcoming assignments and modules that we're going to be looking at in the course. This is going to give you a sense of the rhythm of how we're going to work and how you're going to be introduced to material over the coming months. All of these assignments are on eClass, but may not be visible yet because I do have things paced out. However, you can safely assume that there is always an assignment assigned with every module, and that it's generally due when the next module is due. I think there's one exception to this because of the way that it interacts with a break that's coming up. So whenever there is a module, assume that there is an assignment, and so you can see what days things will be assigned by looking at what days those will go live. The module assignments are built in such a way that they shouldn't take that long to do. They're meant to be something equivalent to what we might be able to accomplish together in class if we were meeting in person synchronously, and that we'd walk you through. So don't spend too much time on it. If you're spending a lot of time on it, get in touch and let's talk about what sort of issues that you're running into. I'm here to help you with that, help you understand what exactly each of these things are supposed to be. My goal is for you to understand and to be able to do these things. They're not tests of whether or not you can or what your existing skills already are. If I was doing that, you wouldn't need to be taking class and I wouldn't be teaching you the specific skills that we're going through. So we're going to start with module 1, which we're in the middle of right now. It's an introduction, and it's really a bit meta because the assignment is going to be a quiz about this video and the other course information. So it's about getting all the key information, and it's really to lock you into what the expectations are for the class so that you understand how it's going to function. That's it. Next week, we'll be getting into module 2, which will be introducing the internet, and there's a quiz associated with that as well that then due by the next week in time for the module 3 content to come out. Those are the 2 quizzes that we have in the course. Then we move into other types of assignments that involve different types of work. In module 3, we're going to talk about building from scratch, where you're going to be building a very basic HTML website on a provided server so that you have that experience of accessing a server directly through FTP, or in this case, secure FTP. We don't know what FTP is. That is explained in that module. And then being able to code something and put it online and see that it's working. Nothing sensitive in that information, and all of it will be provided and explained. After that, in Module 4, we're going to get into content management systems. This is how most websites are going to run and probably how you're going to interact with things. You're welcome to build something by scratch if you feel like you have the aptitude of your previous experience, but you're not required to at all. It can be a little tricky to get all the features into it. So most likely you're going to be using some sort of content management system. And we're going to reflect upon this and look at how we get different benefits and have different affordances or limitations that come from different options that we might have, right? After that, we're going to talk about communications, first in the way that we communicate between things, the types of things that we do inter-office, in businesses, with colleagues, etc., and then move into online marketing. Those are modules 5 and 6. And each of these will have an applied exercise and a little bit of critical reflection that goes along with them. We are going to close out the web design section of the class with a module on security and ethics, and there's a short project in there that will ask you to think about internet regulation. In parallel to these first modules, you'll be able to develop your website. And about mid-November, you will be turning in your website design project beta. And that's going to get a full review, you'll get a grade on it, and like I said, it's something that then I'll be expecting you to work with through the rest of the year, and we'll get reevaluated at the end of the year. Starting with that assignment, all you're going to be turning in from that point on for the project for modules is going to be the active URL on your website specifically directly to that project. Now I want to be clear that this is a direct link. So if you're looking at something where you're asking someone to scroll down, that's not going to work. You need to be able to have a direct URL that's going to go directly to the page in which you're going to be storing work from now on. Now, if you want to have some form of password protection or somehow make it so that your work isn't exposed online, or you're concerned about that, there are different measures that you can take to be able to do that, whether or not it's password protecting specific sections or limiting permissions through something like Google Sites, which uses Google accounts to be able to create limitations around files, etc. Whichever one you want to use, that's fine. We'll just have to work that out in advance. I want it to be consistent, and I want it to still be something where you are submitting your URL. That's the main thing that you're submitting. And then we'll have whatever credentials or whatever access we'll work out separately if you don't want it to be available. Now, I wouldn't worry too much. We're not asking you to do anything that is going to be particularly sensitive or personally revealing. So, don't stress about it too much. But it is an option for you if you feel that you don't want any of your information to be online. I understand that entirely. We'll work that out for there, but you're still going to be putting everything onto your website. It's not a way around that, right? So once we get past web design, we're going to move into data management. And then these sections are going to get a little bit smaller because we have a total of 16 and we've already covered 7 of them there. We're nearly halfway through the content there because we have to set up this repository. In data management, we're going to have a couple of modules, one on just introducing you to working with data. This is looking at what data is, how it works as an asset, how you manage it, how you protect it, how you collect it, etc. It's a lot of the functions around raw data. And then in the next module, we're going to talk about database elements, where we talk about organizing it, architecting that, so you can make use of that data, typically in a sales sort of situation. In our situation, then the project is going to be taking a data set and then creating a query around that, whether or not you do it through what we'll do step by step together, which is actually creating a database in an open free platform, or you could do it through logic and analysis for it. That assignment is going to have you answer a question about box office information. And so you'll get a series of tables that you'll have to figure out how they link together and be able to answer a specific question. Like I said, you would be able to do it by hand, but if you follow along with the database elements work that we'll be doing, or we'll be doing a walkthrough of how to put that together, you can do it that way as well. After we get through data management, we talk about graphic design and visual communication. We have a few modules here. First, we're going to talk about all the elements of it, just what visual rhetoric is, how we talk through images for lines of desire and advertising, and also the individual elements that make that up, both on a theoretical and just the practical elements in the types of programs that we use. We'll also then connect that to written language through the rhetoric of publicity and marketing, how we then translate that into things like press releases. That's going to be Module 11. In Module 12, we start to talk about graphic manipulation. We'll be looking at both pixel and vector-based manipulation of graphic elements that we can use in our designs later. And then we have our design project, where we actually walk through how you want to set up your program project to be able to complete that and turn that in when that becomes due shortly after. Finally, we're going to turn to presentation tools. And we're going to start with speaking and presenting and the analysis around there. And then we're going to have a bit of a forum on looking at effective speakers and presentations. So we're going to look at best practices in Module 14, and then critiquing and looking at other presentations and seeing how those might appear in Module 15. Those will prepare you to do your presentation project, in which you'll create and record a 5-minute, 10-slide talk on a topic of your choosing, which will be due in March. Before we get to the end of the class, we have one more module there, module 16, which then we will bring in intellectual property and look at remix. And you'll have an assignment that's looking at different types of intellectual property that you have access to and what you can then do with it. And hopefully that will then inform, as you're completing your projects and completing your website, different ways in which you are thinking about the images that you might include within that final version of it, if you're going to be updating it. Let's talk a bit about what each of the large assignments are. So we can go through this. These are the things that are actually available from day one in eClass. Each of the module assignments are released along with the modules, but the larger project assignments and all the parameters for them are available from the first day that the eClass becomes available, and will stay available up until their due date. The information will stay up online, but you'll be able to submit them starting at the beginning of class to the end. So if you want to get started on this early, you can also update them throughout the class if you feel like doing that. That's the only way that you can actually work ahead. The modules themselves are paced out at a specific point. You should be able to see the days in which they were released listed below them when they become available and active, right? So the first assignment that we have, the first big project, is the web design beta. When you put this together, I'm going to give you a number of parameters in which you need to include features or types of pages on that website project. Keep in mind, this is an arts, this is a theater class, so it is geared towards company management or at least promoting a show. If you want to do something else, if you have a different business in mind, I'm open to it, but we're going to have to find equivalents, and by we, I mean you're going to have to suggest equivalents to be able to accomplish the same things that we would include. It doesn't mean that you get to change the parameters for things, or it has to be effective for the type of business or activity or project that you're making a website about. It means that you might have features that are irrelevant to whatever you're creating a website around, because you need to meet the parameters of the assignment. So it's usually easiest to do it around a theater company. And it is around managing a theater company as opposed to promoting a theater company. And some of the features will make that really obvious. So what does that website have to include? It has to include an electronic call board. This is a place where you have announcements that are highly visible, easy to get there, minimal amount of clicks. What do people need to know right from the get-go? What sort of announcement do you have? This is similar to a call board in which you would have what is your call for the next day if you're going to rehearsal. You want people to get to that information as soon as possible. This is different from, and in addition to, including a calendar, which is going to have either a rehearsal or production schedule in some sort of calendar format. It's recognizable as a calendar format. Whether or not you're embedding a calendar or you're designing it in the way that it's laid out, it needs to read as a calendar would, so that somebody coming to it understands that what they're looking at is calendar information. There's also going to be a few different forms. One of those is an online biography submission form, where someone would submit information about themselves. You can do this either online as a form, or you can do it as a downloadable paper form that they fill out. The more able to do it on someone's computer with a minimal amount of additional work on their part, the better you're going to do on making this useful. Another form that you'll have is management contact info / form. So you're going to make sure that the information for project leaders, even if it's made up, is easy to find and interact with, and is highlighted separately from just any other form or any other kind of it. You need to be able to direct people to how to get in touch with you or whoever you're positioning as your leader of your project very easily. You're also going to have an information table. This might be something like a contact sheet, but it's something where you have a grid of information. So it's working with tables. We're going to look at tables when we build from scratch. This is built into just about every builder and generator and content management system. So it's making sure that you're able to organize data in that sort of structured way. You're also going to have a secure document section in which you have a password protected or otherwise access limited section, like if you're using Google Sites, etc., where you'll be able to keep an archive of rehearsal and production files. The reason for this is that sometimes we deal with sensitive information that appears in a rehearsal or production report that might say something about a cast member that is for the limited audience of the people that are working on it. So you want that to be secured because you don't want that to be made available to somebody from outside the production where that information might be sensitive. Similar with, coming back to that contact info, when you have those contact details, you're going to want to make sure that those are protected in a correct format, right? At the same time, you're going to have a section where you want forms that are accessible and downloadable. So these can be any type of document really, but I have them like downloadable forms, like releases, like a risk release or a photo or video release, media release, etc. Things that everybody has to fill out, that they get a blank version of that and are able to send into you as opposed to using it through a form. Another public section will be sharing, so that there's a place, a method for sharing information in the development of things. This doesn't necessarily have to live on the website, although most places have a way for you to be able to upload something. This could be a way that you integrate an external app into what you're doing. which leads us to the last parameter, which is app integration. So app can be anything that is, an application that you use that allows you to accomplish, manage data, communicate, etc. But it's going to be external to your project. So this is integrating something that functions on another website and getting it into your website, whether or not that's through an API or an embed code or what have you. It doesn't have to be particularly complicated. It could be a calendar, it could be a map, it could be a social feed, it could be a video, etc. I want to see that you're able to take content from one place and be able to embed it into your website. Once you've completed this website, the way that it gets graded is just having everything in it is worth half of it. Now you can get sort of two tiers here. There's you get points for just doing it, and then you get points for doing it in a way that is well executed, which is to say that it's easy to interact with, it's easy to find, it's clearly labeled, all of those things. That specific parameter is very easy to understand where it is. So that if you're dealing with something like documents, it's very clearly that this is a document section, there might be an icon or something. It's not just like a link hidden someplace with a heading that's buried under something else. You want to execute these in a way in which you're thinking about the user, the company members that you have, and the fact that you want them to be able to access these things and they're for their benefit, right? This is overlapping a bit, but we also have a grade for about 30% of user experience. This is the ability to navigate your website, for it to make sense of how the information is organized, that we can get around. This is oftentimes one of the places where I give the most feedback as well, is what is the ease of being able to find what you need? This is particularly important to keep in mind when you're uploading your module assignments to it, is that if you put everything as a flat menu, either at the top or drop down, etc., where everything is at the same hierarchy, then those module assignments will start to get really crowded, and you're going to have difficulty directing people to specific places, even if your URLs work. So you start having to think about that navigation, and that leads to your user experience. What are the friction points that someone has? Can they easily find the information and jump around the website whenever they're using it? You'll also have 10% for password protection or just securing things. Whether or not you have it is pretty much the parameter there. And then the app integration is also another 10%. Once you're done with this project, you submit a URL, you send me whatever sort of access information that you need if you've protected it in some way, or you need to share it with me. But from that point on, everything is pretty much an online text submission with a maximum of 3 words, just to make sure that in case there's punctuation and it counts it as multiple words and not just one URL, that you're not going to run into an issue. That can change if we do run into issues, but from that point forward in mid-November, you're going to be just submitting a URL to a website someplace. And that's going to be true for all of the additional assignments after that, which will go onto pages on that website. Now, with everything else, if you do need to share something, you need to share it with office hours at toasterlab.com. That is, especially if you're using Google products, that is a Google account. That is what's powered behind it. So that's something that you can share docs with or share Google Sites with and access there. Share it as you would with a collaborator to office hours at toasterlab.com. It will work as Google for that, right? Now, like I said, we're going to start with a beta version. So if you don't get everything exactly right, done is good. So make sure you turn everything in. If you don't like the grade that you got, if you think that you can get more, don't ask for evaluation. Then you have the opportunity to improve everything and it will be evaluated. You do have to say, I do want it evaluated, but that's the extent of it, in April, before the end of the class, before you get a grade. So don't worry too much about the feedback that you get. Take that, work with it, start to work with the website. You'll be fine. You'll get more feedback for it. So the database project, that comes second. It's actually due right when we come back from the winter break. We'll be doing data management up until that point. This is where the one exception to a module assignment is that because classes end on Tuesday, that assignment is actually due on the Tuesday before we go away to the exam period or to the break, depending on whether or not you have exams. So that's the one exception to the module schedule where it is due 1 day ahead of when things normally are. Keep an eye out for that. Otherwise, the database assignment is going to be due pretty much right when we get back, right in early January. What the database project is going to do is I'm going to give you a data set, a few different CSVs or comma-separated values. They could open in Excel. They're essentially spreadsheets, but they're tables of information in which they've been separated by commas that you can bring into a database program, database platform, etc. Don't worry if that doesn't make sense right now. That is what the point of the modules leading up to that are. They will show you how to do those things. These data tables that you have relationships that will already be populated in them, and you have to make those connections so that you can then query that information. Your submission is going to be the database that you build, or however you put it together, the working files that you have, the query results, what you get out of that, and then a step-by-step proof of your work, explaining every step from receiving the files to reaching the final answer and how you determine that, so that you can actually get points that even if you get to an incorrect query response to it, like it doesn't have the correct information for it, you still get points for if you are putting together in a way, and we can find out where the issue is with it. Now, as you're working on that, do know that you can get in touch with me, and if you want me to take a look at the database ahead of time, it might take longer periods of time as we're in the exam period and in the break before we get back. That is something that we can do. So don't leave it to the last minute to do, but also the module, which will be recorded, obviously, is something that if you follow it step by step, I will bring you through every step of the process of doing this. And so it might feel redundant to then provide a proof if you do use that method, but I want you to demonstrate that you're understanding how you put the thing together. Ultimately, the way that it gets graded, 20% of that is in the database design, which is structuring it, not like graphic design for it, but that you've structured it correctly, that it works the way that it's supposed to. Your relationships are mapped out correctly. 40% of that is going to be the query results. The fact that you got the correct answer is worth 40% of the assignment, and then the proof is worth the other 40%. So you can see that it's just as important to explain how you got to the answer as to have the answer itself. And that will influence the sort of grade that you get along with it as well. So you're going to submit those things so I can see how you worked, what you did, you can explain it as well, and then you got to the correct answer, right? So project number 3. This is the graphic design project. It's a show program. If you're unfamiliar with show programs, there's lots of examples online. There's lots of templates online too. So you should be able to find one of these. You can also look at Playbill, and you'll be able to take a look at what one of these are. If you've been to many events, you probably have received something that is like a program before, so it shouldn't be that foreign of a document. It's a small booklet that is going to give you all the information about an event that you're at. So even if you haven't seen it at a theater event, you might have seen it at a sporting event. You might have seen it at a convocation or a ceremony or a wedding or any sort of event, right, etc., in which they've provided you with, a folded piece of paper. That is what the program is. We have specific parameters in the program that I'm asking you to make, which are going to demonstrate your ability to integrate the ideas that we cover within those modules. When you make the program for this class, it is meant to be for a performance. It doesn't have to be for an existing performance. You can make all the information up. When I ask you for blocks of text, like a biography, it can be placeholder text, none of it has to be real. If you have information that's available, that's easier for you, you can use that. You can make it around a show that you want to make. You can make it around a show that you've seen. You can make it around a show that is not a theater show, that is a movie or a TV show, and that you're putting it into this format because you're presuming that it works as a theater show. It works for all those things because a lot of that information that you need to include in it exists for any one of these sort of performance pieces of content, right? So what are the things that need to be included within there? The first thing is the format needs to be correct, right? So I'm asking you for an 8-page program. This is going to be folded. It's going to be saddle stitched. If you don't understand what that is, don't worry. We will talk about that. We will go through the construction of it in multiple formats. It's going to be 8 pages, which means it's actually going to start as 2 sheets of paper, which when they're flat, the flat size is 8.5 by 11 letter. And what you're going to be creating is something where the final size is half letter or 5.5 inches by 8.5 inches. So that you're going to go from 2 sheets of paper printed on both sides that are going to get folded and ultimately give you an 8-page booklet. There are specific things that I want you to put into that booklet that are going to demonstrate your understanding of how the information is organized and how to create hierarchy in having a reader move through pieces of information using the principles of graphic design, primarily working with text. You can apply these to other programs and other types of documents that you might work with to help the reader guide their eye around the important information and be able to quickly reference things. But we're going to focus on the program. You need to include a title, the playwright or author or choreographer, director or choreographer, depending how those are organized, but those hierarchy of, top level creative work, designers, management team, you need the cast, you need their bios, you need the management and technical staff, you can include their bios, and special notes and things, and then an advertisement. And the advertisement can be on its own, an individual page, or it can be integrated into what you're doing. All of these things need to be part of it, because I'm looking for how you organize the information. That is what I'm looking for. It's not about just laying things out and having it flat. I want there to be a sense of, here's how you want me to read this thing. Like I said, you can use placeholder text. You don't have to come up with blocks of text for everything. Nothing has to be actually real. It can be all made up. And if this is something that you're going to struggle with, let's talk about it. Let's see how you can get that information into what you need. Ultimately, what you're going to submit for this is going to be a single print-ready PDF of the complete program. That's all I'm going to take, and I don't care about how you build it. It needs to be ready to print. Now, the unique part of that is based off of how you put it together, and one of the things that we're going to be covering is that when you're dealing with facing pages, if you want something to cover a spread as opposed to individual pages, there are specific ways to design that and then specific ways to prepare that document. Now, some programs don't necessarily let you work in spreads, though they sort of do, but they then export them as individual pages. We'll also take a look at then how you turn that into the booklet that it needs to be. All you're going to turn in for that, regardless of whether or not it's a single pages or spreads, as long as it will print correctly and you can provide instructions for that, is a print-ready PDF that I, using the instructions that you will also provide, will be able to send to my printer at my house and be able to output. And it's going to be correct. It's going to read in the right order of pages. That's the most important thing. It's one of the trickier parts. It's a small part, but a tricky part. Ultimately, this is something where you're going to turn in a PDF, but you're going to turn it in by putting it onto your website. again, all of the work after the website is turned on by the website. So you will put the PDF online. It will give me a URL to where you've stored it, including your instructions that go along with that. Whether or not it's on the page or you include it within a packaged program folder that I can download as a zip, etc. However you decide to do it, whatever platform you decide to use, we need to have access to the final PDF directly and instructions on how to print it. The grades for this, 50% of it, professional formatting layout, the way that you've structured the information, that you've respected the way that the theatrical process works, what the hierarchy of information is. There are specifications for what the size of various people's names need to be in relationship to the title. Like when you have licensed a play, usually the playwright's name has to be at least 50% of the size of the title. And then where you put people in what order, usually with like a director first, and then the order of designers sort of fluctuates and how you reference them. But you have those top level department heads and things like that, usually higher. That sort of hierarchy, right? I want to see that in your layout and your formatting, that you understood how the project is structured and been able to put that into this program. That's worth 50% of the grade. The correctly sized PDF with the printing instruction, that's 30% of it. So that's more of a technical approach to it. Is it going to present correctly? Is it going to print correctly with the pages in the right order based off of how you put it together? Ready to go. And then all of the organized content, basically that you've got all of your sections included, is worth 20%. So even though I'm looking primarily at layout and formatting for half of the grade, the actual inclusion of all of those parameters is 20% of that grade too. So don't think that you cannot include one because of the way that it's designed. I want you to include all of those because I want to see your thinking on how you organize those things. Our final project in this class, project number 4, is the presentation project. And this is going to be a 10-slide presentation on a topic of your choosing that you're going to deliver in a 5-minute recorded presentation. Now you might say that you can deliver it faster than that or you're going to need more time. No, part of the thing that we're going to look at is the timing and pacing of a presentation and being able to fit that time appropriately and pace out the slides. So you don't want it to go too fast, you don't want it to go too slow. I want you to be able to use the presenter's view and the extended features within whatever presentation program that you're looking at so that you have notes in front of you, etc., that I can see that you know how to build something so that you can best reinforce your ability to deliver it, depending on where you are, of course. And then I want you to give me 2 items coming out of this. I want you to give me that original presentation file. Now, if you build it in an online platform such as Google Slides or Canva, which both are really useful in having easy to transport transportations, like you can share them more easily, you need to share them to me as though I could edit them. So as a collaborator, not as someone who's just viewing it. This is particularly tricky in Canva, I find, is that if you just hit share and you send it to somebody, then it's going to send you to their ability to like click through it on their own, the display version of it. No, I want you to actually share it with me so that I can see your use of the various features in the platform. This is one of those times that I actually want to see that. If you do PowerPoint or Keynote or whatever they call the open source one that goes into LibreOffice or OpenOffice, whatever platform that you're using, generally I can open them, and I want you to send me that file. And by send it, I mean upload it to your website. Got a little tricky there. And then also you're going to include a video of you presenting it. That video, you can upload it to YouTube if you want to embed it. That does take care of an app integration for the website eventually. You can also put the file up online. You can put it behind a password or what have you. If you have limitations to storage or where you can put it, that's fine. I can either work with the actual file and go to the file directly, or you can put it onto a streaming platform. I'm actually not that worried about the format for the recording, and I'm not that worried about the recording quality either. What matters is that I can see both you and your slides. So if you're doing this, if you're shooting it on your phone, if you want to do it through screen sharing in Zoom or another video communication platform where you can share your screen and you can record what you're doing there so you can see you and I can see the presentation. I don't need to see the presentation view, like the presenter's notes in that version of it. That's why I'm asking for you to share the file with me. But I want to be able to see the slides move along with you presenting them. The most important part is actually that I can clearly hear what you're saying. Audio is oftentimes more important than the visuals if you have a choice between the two. So you can record it with a webcam with your phone, a setup that captures both you and your presentation. If you've got watermarks on it because of whatever video platform you're using, don't worry about it. If you're in portrait, so if you're vertical versus horizontal, portrait versus landscape, doesn't matter. Low production values, just whatever works. It could be the lowest quality webcam. If I can see your slides and I can hear you clearly, you're going to be in good shape. The grading for this breaks down 25% in each of these 4 areas. The source files, the timing, your pacing, your ability to actually fit within the parameters that I'm giving you. So when I'm saying 5 minutes, I'm looking for you to be very close to that and to rehearse it so that you're there, because that's worth 25% of your grade. You cannot actually get an A without having appropriate timing. I'm going to be looking at your formatting, the way that you've organized it, and your content editing. Essentially your copy editing to make sure that there's no typos, to make sure that the information is suitable for a public audience when you're presenting things. Of course, things happen, but take a look at that, make sure that it's nice and clean and you're following best practices. So, and all of that also in the rubric then indicates places where through your source files and content, etc., where I'll be looking for adding value based off of the extended use of tools. Okay, after you've completed all that work, it's all up on your website in April 1, in fact. You will have the ability to confirm whether or not you want your website reassessed, whether you want me to look at it again. If you're happy with your grade from November and you're like, great, it's great, I've been able to turn everything in, I'm happy where I am, I like my grade, or it's not going to adjust that much in my life, fine. You can say, no, I don't care about it being reassessed, just give me my grade. I'm going to move on with my life and do whatever you need to do. If you want it reassessed because you got a lot of feedback, you don't like the grade, you think that you could push it up, you could push up your entire grade level by getting a few more points on there, then I will reassess it then and give you whatever the higher mark is. In that situation, your grade will never go down. I will never decrease your grade by doing the reassessment. Usually your website doesn't get worse, but in the event that something, something comes down while something goes up, you're missing something becomes unacceptable, I will not lower your grade. I don't know what the situation is. I haven't run into it yet. It will always raise your grade, right? And that's it. Those are all the assignments. So having been through the assignments, let's just talk about some of the other important parameters of the class. Like I said, and I will reiterate this over and over again, always submit direct URLs in eClass. Once we get to the website, there's a couple things that you do ahead of that will be assignments that you turn in, but generally everything is going to be a direct URL in eClass. So if you get slacking on the website at the beginning, if you're not at a place where you feel comfortable getting your work on there or working with a platform where you're struggling to figure out how to put your assignment onto the upload things, etc., use a different platform, because I will not accept the work. You not being able to get your website to work is not going to excuse you from the only way that you can turn in your work from that point forward through a direct URL to the work. The only exception to it being a public, open, direct URL that I can click on and open is if you need some sort of security for not wanting whatever your work is to not be visible to the outside world. And that's something that we'll set up at the very beginning. The other thing to keep in mind is that I do not accept late work. I said this in the introductory video because it's very important. It is perhaps different from other classes that you're in, but no, I don't provide any sort of deduction that you have for a number of days late. I don't care about messing with that. What I will do is give you an extension as long as you ask for it in advance of the due date, as far as possible, ideally. Now, if you ask for an extension before an assignment is due and it's right up against the deadline, yes, I will still consider it as long as it's come before the deadline. But I'm asking you to ideally get it to me 5 p.m. business day before. So most things come due on Wednesday, get them in by 5 p.m. on the Tuesday. And then you're more guaranteed to be confirmed that you have that extension. When you do ask for that extension, make sure that you're using officehours@toasterlab.com. Do not use any other email address. I'm not even gonna list other options for it. Use officehours@toasterlab.com. If you send an extension request anywhere else, consider that you have sent it off into a great abyss and you will never receive a response. As with most communication here, that is where I communicate about this class. You can ask questions on Pumble, and we'll be using that this year. There's a forum that's on it. You can always ask questions about assignments there. We can have a more casual chat, but don't ask for your extensions there. Those need to be by email in officehours@toasterlab.com, and make sure that in the subject line, you include that it is an extension and what the assignment is and when you want it to be due, what your revised deadline is. Now, I'm not gonna, don't get in touch and say I want it to be due April 1st. You can't push all the work back. Because the work does accumulate in terms of skills, it also can accumulate in terms of actually backtracking for it. So this is meant to be that if you see a lot of assignments coming up, if you see a busy time, if you're part of a production, if you've got a large project and you wanna move something, you could do that now. You could ask for extensions for work that's happening in the winter term because you're like, I'm going to be on a show, I'm going to be in tech, I'm going to be doing this very important project, I'm going to a conference as part of a research project I'm an RA on. There's lots of reasons that you can ask for an extension. I pretty much won't ask for questions because it's an extension. You're asking in advance. And I've yet to deny them except to say that don't let them go too far, or maybe that date won't work. Let's move that up so that you don't let your work pile up, right? So I'd like all that information in the subject line. It definitely has to be in the body of the email. If you do not submit a proposal for when the extension is going to go to, I can't award it. I can't put it. I need to have something that I can put into the course management system so that it will revise the deadline for you. And I'm not going to make the proposal for you because I've already proposed deadlines for you. They're when the things are due. So you have to look at your own schedule, your own timeline, your own capacity, and decide, here's when I would like to turn this in, and make sure you get that to me as soon as possible. So as some final reminders about the class, one of the things that I want you to focus on as you move through the course is to remember the goal is not perfection. You're not going to come out of this as a full stack web developer. people train for years or practice for years to be able to accomplish that. You should be building familiarity, and you should be able to practice in these things and know what you're now looking at when you come into this in another context. This is meant for arts management. So most arts managers are not also web developers. I mean, plenty of us end up doing that work, sure, out of necessity, more than anything else. And it's a wonderful skill to have. That's partially how I cultivated it too, is that I would moonlight as a developer because I was working on arts projects and people needed that service. So you can always cultivate that. But the goal of this class, by the time we get to the end of April, none of these things are necessarily expected to be working at professional levels. You'll be marked accordingly if you're doing exceptionally well, but they are set up in such a way to give you plenty of practice and to be good so that you can get out there, so that you might do this work yourself, or at least will be very conversant on being able to collaborate with somebody else and being able to communicate your needs more effectively to better and more efficiently manage your projects, regardless of whether or not you have to do this work yourself. I want you to engage with the tools, experiment, and learn by doing. That's the idea. We'll add in the critical elements there that will be reinforced through the fact that you're getting hands-on with these different platforms and technologies. Over the next few weeks, you're going to encounter a variety of resources. Sometimes send me a lecture, I'm going to talk more, or send you to other information. Sometimes there'll be a demonstration. I might be sitting and showing you something on a computer. Sometimes there's going to be readings, and I'm going to send you to outside links, things to read, listen to, watch, etc. Usually I label them as what you're supposed to interact with them. Some modules, like data management, may feel very technical and dry. That might not be what you're most interested in, but they'll give you a foundation to tackle more expressive work later on. They all sort of inform the way that you're organizing your thoughts and then organizing information in your projects. I'm looking forward to seeing the inventive ways in which you bring these skills. I get surprised all the time. So thanks for joining Technology and Arts Management. If you have course questions, you can email me, officehours@toasterlab.com, or ask me on Pumble. We'll have channels for each of the modules. We'll be able to have channels for each of the assignments. Please talk on there. Please feel free to share notes. Please feel free to compare different ways in which you're doing things. Sometimes I'm asking you to do that. Sometimes I'm encouraging you to do it. You're always welcome to do that. I would say that do rely on your classmates. Ever confused by anything, please be in touch with each other. There's nothing wrong with that. I will also be in those things. I'll keep an eye on it at the times when I'm able to. So you can always direct message me. You might be waiting a little bit of time for that. Similar with email, you don't have to do both. Nothing's going to speed it up for my response. I will respond to whichever one I get to first, and usually I'm on them at the same time. But that being said, welcome to Technology and Arts Management. I'm glad you're here, and I'll see you online.